Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Roland and I like dice. Today we're diving into a technique using dice blanks and resin shells. This method is perfect for creating custom dice that use designs that would otherwise smudge or scrape off if you just added them to the outside of a traditional set. Things like paint, Sharpie, stickers, washi tape, all those use this method to keep those goodies inside. I'm going to show you some examples later on in the video, and obviously we'll be working on one together now. The variety of uses for this type of set is ginormous. There really are so many ways that you can use this method and combine it with other dice making methods too to get a crazy amount of unique sets. To get started, I'm pouring some blanks here. I'm using footage from the Borderlands video, which I will link using the card above. These are not the blanks I end up using for the rest of the set and this video, but this just shows you how I make my blank dice. It's a fairly standard pour, just like you do for any other set, just in a no numbers, slightly smaller blank mold. These will be used as our centerpiece for the finished product later. Once they're poured, they'll go into the pressure pot for 24 hours at 30 psi. Once our blanks are cured, it's time to demold them. I've got two sets here that I made. Let's take a look at how they turned out. Again, these are just examples to show you how I demold a set of blanks and what they look like when they come out. But we'll actually go now to the set we'll be using for the rest of the video. And they look like this. Next up, sanding the blanks. This step is optional, but it helps get rid of any of the raised faces or excess flashing that would otherwise get in the way of our decorating. This will help to achieve a smoother surface for the next stages, but note that you don't need to worry about the level of shine or smoothness on these particular blanks, because when you cast these blanks into their shell, the outside resin will actually make the inside piece appear perfectly polished. I just give them a single rough sand at 1000 grit and call it good. I love the colors and designs on these blanks, but I wanted to tie it all together with just a little more detail. So I'm going to frame these dice with just a gold Sharpie. It's actually very simple to do. You just run your marker along each edge of each die, and you want to give them a couple seconds between each line to give them time to dry, or you'll risk smudging the Sharpie. So what I do is usually alternate which die I'm working on. So I'll work on the D6 and do one side of that, and then I'll switch to the D20, and then I'll do the D12, and then I'll come back to the D6, etc., etc. If you're enjoying the dice content and want to see more, it helps me out a ton if you like and subscribe, check out my other videos, leave a comment. If you have specific ideas for dice that you want to see, please let me know in the comments as well. So after they've all been framed and you're happy with them, you can go ahead and pour a shell and seal in your design. This means we'll take our full dice mold and pour a little bit of clear resin inside to just about halfway. It's at this point I like to take the blunt end of a toothpick and kind of poke around in the mold just to make sure none of the bubbles that like to form inside the numbers stay there. And then we'll take our blanks, cover them in some more resin to prevent any air bubbles from sneaking in, and then we'll gently push these blanks into our mold. The blanks get almost perfectly centered right away in these dice molds because the numbers that are being cast actually work to keep it centered inside the mold. So we'll put the lid on these guys and put them in the pressure pot for 24 hours at 30 psi, just like our blanks. And while we wait for those to cure, I just wanted to take the chance to show off some dice that I've been making or working on that utilize this blank and shell technique. I think it's one of the most important techniques to master as a dice maker, since the design opportunities really are almost limitless. You can really put just about anything you want on these blanks, stickers, Sharpie, paint, whatever you want, and then just cast it in clear and you're good to go. It's sealed, no risk of things coming off. So now that the dice are set, we're going to pull them out of the mold. Even though this shell is totally clear, something about adding the numbers on makes the dice look completely different, and I love seeing how the design changes after I pull the dice out. Here's how different these guys look before we even put any paint in the numbers. Once again, we're going to hit these with some sandpaper. The finish on these does matter since this will be your final product. So my process here is 3 rounds of sandpaper, one time at 1,000 grit, one time at 2,000 grit, and then one time at 3,000 grit. I use 3M wet or dry. And we'll just get the sides that touch the lid to get rid of the flashing. So the one's face, and then everything that touches the one's face. And the rest of the dice faces are already plenty polished up from when we made our masters. So to bring the shiny to the next level, we're going to break out the Dremel polisher and some Meguiar's Ultimate. This is a car polish that works really well for resin. This is where we make sure to buff every single face, not just the ones that we sanded, just to make sure that they're all at the same level of polish. I'm just going to go clockwise a couple rotations and then counterclockwise a couple rotations for each face. Finally, we're going to add some paint to bring out the details and the numbers. I wanted to match the trim on these blanks, so I went with a complementary gold paint. This is just about the cheapest acrylic I can find on Amazon that has some metallic in it. It works for me. It's really nothing special, but it doesn't need to be. And to paint these numbers, I just put a dab in the number and then make sure it spreads into all the corners and crevices, and then I wipe off the excess with my finger. Anything that's left dries, and then I take a wet shop towel later and just rub the rest of it off. And that leaves you with a perfectly painted, polished die. So with all that painting done, let's take a look at the final product. Thanks for tuning in, watching the entire process. If you have any thoughts or suggestions for our next dice designs, please leave a comment below. Now with everything else out of the way, it's time to hear how these puppies roll. Thanks for watching.